Good afternoon, David.
Good afternoon, David. How you doing?
No bad. Gordon seems to be having some problems joining us. Apparently, he can't get the system. They can't get the link to access his camera.
All right. Okay. Well, that's
I've asked him if he can join us with voice. We might be able to talk him through it.
At the end of the day, it's like fine. I was hoping we'd get Gordon on. We could get his point of view on things. That's all. He's a good.
I'll sort out Facebook, then I'll get back to Gordon.
Yeah.
Where are we? Edit privacy. Make that public.
Yeah, I should keep them going here. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon in Clydebank. Lauren Kipton, hello all people. Well, we don't know what's happening with Gordon.
I'm just asking if he can join by voice only, then we can maybe talk him through getting the camera switched on.
Aye. But if he hits the link, it's audio video anyway. There's no.
But no, he's saying the link's not recognising his camera.
Yeah,
because
right.
What this comes up a box to light, it should allow you to put your camera and your mic on.
Yeah.
But what he's saying is he can't get his device to recognise his camera.
Yep.
I'll say I'll send him a new link.
Yep. At least it's getting the troops time to get on board. And get
that is aye.
Get the popcorn open, get the drinks out.
It could well be his device doesn't support the streaming service.
Aye, maybe.
Right, I've sent him a new link. Let's hope that works. If not, we're just going to have to carry on. We'll
David,
talk a wee bit about his career.
If he doesn't get on this one, maybe he'll say he'll come on maybe Monday, and maybe he'll link up with us beforehand before we go live. So anyway, let's go on with the program as is.
No, well, David, we'll give Gordon another wee minute to try and get in. What we'll do is we'll talk about why there's no super chat button. Is there a super chat button today, David?
No.
Right, anyway, according to them, we've switched off monetisation and we can't switch it back on for 21 days. Now, of course, it wasn't deliberately switched off. David's updating the system.
Yeah.
And so he's going to speak to him, see if we can get it back on before that. But as you know, the link to the bank account is in the YouTube channel on the Facebook page. So if you plan on making a donation to the Food Bank Fund, please do it via the bank details that are in the details of the programme.
It is pretty ridiculous, the fact that they've switched off their monetisation when all I did was do an update, do a change of the setup on Google, when in actual fact it's to do with YouTube. I know. What the hell?
If his device, as you say, George, as you say, David, if his device, he's obviously in his car probably. If his device doesn't support the link, then we'll just need to arrange to get him for his house or something at some point.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. But it's a shame, really. I was looking forward to hearing from him.
Nice.
Gordon had a reasonably long run of 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And that time he also did a bit of broadcasting with Broadcasting Scotland. So
right.
He did well.
So let's get started on 1 year. Humza has been in the top spot, right?
Yep.
What's your thoughts on him, David? Are you happy that we voted him in? If you're going to be doing this, watching for Gordon all the time, we're not going to watch your programme, right?
So I know. I'll just tell Gordon we'll do it again. We'll try something else to get him on later.
Yep. So what's your thoughts on Humza? Are you happy that we voted him into the number one spot?
Aye. Now, as we know, FMQ's today, they're all trying to rip the piss out of his record in office, but let's take an objective look at what he's managed to achieve in his first year in office, right? I mean, for a start, right across his islands, he has he's been admired for his principal stand on the Israel-Palestine situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in the face of a pro-Israel media, and in the face of a pro-Israel Westminster, Humza's shone the light on humanity. That's a positive. That's a tick in the box right away. Now, but let's have a look at what he's actually managed to do in these tight situations. He's implemented the planned rise in the child upward payment, despite cuts to the block grant in real time, and of course, the loss of a value to the block grant due to inflation, cost of living crisis, and energy crisis. So the value of the money in the Scottish Government's pockets went down, but he still managed to gear that uplift. Now, Humza's portraying it as lifting 100,000 people out. The charities are portraying it as 100,000 people not dropping in to poverty. So, either way,
they'll be there, but if he hadn't done it, there'd be 100,000 people in an awful lot worse situation than they are now.
Yes.
We
did speak about the child first report in the last programme, and how the studies showing that 100,000 people haven't dropped into poverty, but nobody's been lifted out yet.
So, what about strike action?
Well,
yeah, well, no, seriously. What's Humza done regarding the strike action? He's benefited us fantastically. He's managed to get in there and create the proper negotiation, sensible, adult negotiations.
Hi, Gordon. Listen, it's quite clear your device doesn't support Restream, mate, so I can't transmit you across this way. So what we'll do is, once you're at home and you've got a home device, we'll set up an interview that way. Is that okay for you?
That's fine, Davey. I'm sorry I couldn't do this today. I've just finished work, so I haven't had much of a chance really to set anything up.
That's all right, Gordon. Honestly, that's great. I'm just putting you nearer to the mic so that people can hear you. So what we'll do is, Gordon, we're live at the moment, so we're into the topical subjects. We're going to talk to you first and invite you to join us for the topical subjects. So what we'll do is, I'll get a grip of you later on, and we'll arrange another hook up for an interview and a discussion. All right, mate?
So do you want to leave it today, Dave?
We'll just need to leave it today because your phone's not supporting the streaming service, Gordon.
Okay.
And
I'll get back in touch when I get home, Davey. Okay.
Aye, and we'll see if your home devices will operate with the streaming service, mate. Okay.
All right. Sorry to interrupt the show.
No, not at all, Gordon. We were all looking forward to hearing from you, and we'll look forward to hearing from you soon. Okay, mate?
All right.
Bye, Gordon.
I'll talk to you soon.
Right, bye, Gordon.
All right.
He just made it into legend status. Somebody phoning the show. I know his team have done really well in averting public sector strikes, David.
Yeah.
Really well. I mean, especially in health and social care and the NHS, because there are huge problems there. But the problems are actually being alleviated. We'll get to some of the other things that he's managed to achieve in his first year. But you're right about the public service pay disputes. The Scottish Government, Humza's team, have been absolutely wonderful about how they've handled it, and they have averted a lot of problems in the public sector, in education, in health, in social care, right across the board, actually. Policing, ambulance, the lot. Okay. Now, once again, the last budget gives record funding to the NHS. That's year on year. The NHS funding's got up. But we always hear people talk about workforce planning, David. Now, the SNP's workforce planning means in whom they use his first year in the job, the intake of junior doctors into the NHS, which is what he's couldn't on to bring down the waiting list, has been at its highest ever since records began.
Yeah, so we might not see those doctors get their contracts over the next year, let's say, right? Because all that work was done back a ways, something as that. And that's to Holmes's credit, it really, really is.
That's the Secretary as well, but you've got to remember, we hear for the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, no workforce planning for NHS, no workforce planning. Well, the workforce planning to get these junior doctors into the service this year started 7 years ago.
Yeah. And if you remember, I mean, going back on the SNP's record under Nicola Sturgeon, it was her that brought in all the midwives, if you remember.
Yeah.
Right? And what my wife does, the health visiting, there was a massive number of lasses brought in to do health visiting. And, you know, obviously you've got to take in, they've got specialist degrees that they've got to take. So they're modules really. So you're talking like a year, maybe 2 years, some of them.
Right,
so you've got
far in its favour, David, we've got principal standing Gaza. We've got implementing the uplift to the child credit.
Yeah.
Also implementing the rise to the child uplift payments here in Scotland. We have averted having this team of averted public sector stooges and strikes. A record funding for the NHS and record number of junior doctors coming through. Workforce planning seems to be working fine to me, David.
Yeah.
He's actually managed to get a council tax freeze in when council tax is up between 5.5 and 7.5% down that road. And of course, we know we did have the Labour-Tory coalitions trying to mess with us and say they weren't going to implement it, but they've all fallen into line. So he's managed to negotiate with them and get them all into line as well. It would appear that this guy's a good negotiator.
Well, you know my thought in councils. Let's sack a few councils.
We're talking about dealing with public sector here. So he's managed to bring in a council tax freeze in the middle of a cost of living crisis, when in England and Wales, council tax is going to ensure that any benefit they get for the NI being lowered right out the window. In fact, I was looking at figures on that when it comes to the fiscal drag. And at £25,000 of an income, the drop of national insurance to 8% will see you £62.70 better off. But the stealth taxes that he's brought in and the fiscal drag actually means that you'll be you're £62 better off, but in the round you're actually £82.60 worse off.
Is that per week or per month? Is that per week or per month?
Per payment, per week.
Per week, right? Okay, that's fine.
Well, we'll say per month because it's based on a £25,000 a year salary. That number.
Yeah.
And then when you got to 56,000, you start to lose even more.
Yeah.
So at 25,000, because of fiscal drag and stealth taxes being introduced, you're £20 a week worse off, even though national insurance has went down. That's just nuts. So he's managed to bring in a council tax freeze to help people, because council tax down in England and Wales is going to wipe out any benefits that the cut in national insurance gives. You know, and the same goes for the pensioners. You're getting a huge uplift, £885 a week for the year. That's the increase in their 900, round up to £900 a year. They're getting an increase in, but because of council tax, energy cost of living crisis, there are still what's happening. It's not enough. And this is coming to the OBR and the IFS and all these pampots down the road. But obviously, people can tell that just for the pound in their pocket. It just didn't go as far as it used to.
Yeah, that's right. Dead right. Yeah.
So, I mean, the council tax freeze is a massive tick in terms of use of first year box, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'll go out and do the food shopping for us, right? And I can see it every time I go to Aldi's. And it's like Aldi's is one of the better price stores that there is, you know, and it's like, well, I can see there's another chunk going, another chunk going, another chunk going. I can cope with it, but I know for a fact there's a lot of people that goes through that.
It takes us to issues, so let's carry on about how great it is that inflation's gone down. Peel, you have to remember, inflation going down doesn't mean prices stop rising. It just means they stop rising so quickly.
Yeah.
And actually, when we looked at the figures the other week, and David and I were talking about this, the underlying rate of inflation is at 3.4%. The reality of inflation is 4.6%, because when you throw in food price inflation, energy cost inflation, they're all still running at 11% or so.
Yeah.
So actually, inflation comes into 3.4%, just means prices are they're not coming down, they're just not going up as fast.
Government have been fucking around with inflation for a long, long time, because at the moment we've got CPR instead of CPI instead of RPI, right? RPI was what it used to be back in, was it Tony Blair or Gordon Brown?
Tony Blair, 1997, aye.
And then so that's when it changed to CPI, and it was no. Sorry, correction. I remember it was after I set up Network CEI for the second time, which was 2005. So it would be after that it changed from CPI to RPI.
Right, so it would be during the Tony Blair period anyway.
It just meant that it was a way whereby they could show inflation as being a lesser figure than it actually was, to make the government of the day look better. And that's all.
Aye. And how did they go about it? They took out the two biggest costs that people have.
Yeah.
Housing and what was the other one they took out? Housing cost and vehicles, wasn't it, or something like that?
Energy was.
Energy, that's it. They took the two. Housing and energy. They took the two.
You know,
on the negative side for Humza, so let's go. Run off what he's achieved in his first year. Principal stand in Israel, Palestine, gaining them respect across the planet. Implementing planned rise in child upward payments. NHS budget up. Greatest influx of junior doctors into Scottish NHS Health Service since records began. A council tax freeze in the middle of cost of living crisis. Tick. Negatives. He allowed the party to water down his stance on a plebiscite election.
And that's the one that went.
You and I, David, but of course it was the democratic thing to do because the way political party systems work.
I know.
Unfortunately, there was some influential big beasts to Westminster that threw in amendments that watered this down to say that we'll ask the next government to enact the will of the Scottish people, or we'll go to a plebiscite Scottish election. But the actual fact was, Humza and Dundee, and as you know, David, I was there. Humza and Dundee stated a majority of MPs will call it.
Yeah.
It was MPs that are sitting in Westminster right now that watered it down.
Personally, I believe, and it's my opinion, is that some of these blooming MPs that we've got, SNP MPs sitting down there right now, some of them don't want to leave the job and come north and make an independent Scotland work. It's as simple as that. Any of them can take issue with me anytime they want, but I'll tell you now, I'll look them in the face and I'll say, are you one of them? Seriously.
Well, David, the great argument in the party is always...
We could have had a proper plebiscite and walked away. Even if we lost, we were still in a situation where we had a fallback situation. Now what we're doing is we're relying on the blooming Scottish election. And that's it. And getting through a Scottish election is much harder than it is with a Westminster election, because a Westminster election is first past the post. And and the Tories got a great, big, enormous majority with just 41% of the electorate voting for them.
Aye. So as I say, that's a negative.
Yeah.
For your and I point of view, because of the way the party system works, it had to be put to conference. It's a democratic thing to do. But unfortunately, a few big beasts within the party who sit in Westminster, who have been argued for years of doing to settle down rather than settle up, have watered it down. Okay, now folks, behave yourself in the chat. And I mean it. You know, Facebook chat can be a wee bit more wild than YouTube chat. Keep the insults down. And George, it's nice to see you there. You still got my BBC poster? If you have gives a wee bell, I'd like to get it back. Hey. Right then, let's move on. I think we've done Holmes's first year in power. Now, to be fair, I think he's had no a bad first year considering all the mud that's been thrown at him.
Yeah. I mean, my goodness me. But look at what was happening around about him.
Aye.
Nicola, everything that happened with Nicola. And then you had Operation Branch Form with Nicola. And you go, what the, you know, you see the forensic tent getting erected outside blooming Nicola's house. Humza must have been going, is there anything worse that can happen here? Right? So, as we now know, Operation Branch Form is not all it's blooming stacked up to be. Is it now, boys? Yes?
George is claiming it's because he's had my BBC BBC bias poster for a long time. It's now his.
9/10 of the law. That's it, yeah.
9/10 of the law, George. Aye, well done. Stephen, behave yourself. Right, let's move on. This one's been causing a bit of trouble here and all, and I don't really think that it's not really it shouldn't be a debate, this one. Visit Scotland to close all 25 of its remaining visitor centres. So the Scottish Government comes under a fire as Visit Scotland receives our money to promote Scotland as a tourist attraction. Now, the debate here is based around, David, how people access information today.
There you go. That's what you do. You use one of these things.
Yes.
Or before you leave home, you look it up on your computer or your tablet or whatever. You know what I mean? Something like that.
And that's the argument here. Now, the argument for the cuckoos and the rest in the Scottish Parliament here is, what about the older people? Everybody I know knows how to use a bloody phone and a search engine, no matter what their age is.
Well, okay, if it's an older person and they want to get away, right? I'm pretty sure they've got a good Scottish tongue in their mouth, right? And they're able to ask questions to their neighbours, and their neighbours will go, "Oh, hang on, hen, I'll look it up for you," right? And that's it. It's dead simple.
I was going to run his ass in the candle because he's on the naughty step. It was late. Right, hey. We've got a bus that goes right by us at Clydebank, and it heads for Oban, right? And your over 60s blooming travel card means it's free. So I can go to Oban, get drunk if I wanted to. I don't get drunk, but you know what I mean. Go and have a good drink, one of the bars. A nice meal,
and then get the bus back free of charge, right? Wonderful, and it leaves me literally 50 yards for the house. That's if I'm awake to actually get off the right bit.
Anyway, Visit Scotland's argument is that these places are no longer viable. I mean, if we remember these places, we'd one at Lanark. You rocked up and you went in, and there was a couple of people there, and it was a souvenir show as well as somewhere you picked up a leaflet, and it generated revenue for Visit Scotland at the time. But these places don't generate revenue anymore, and there's a squeeze on the public purse, and nobody's actually using these places. There's nobody getting in there to ask somebody what it is goes on in your area, or to pick up a few leaflets and buy a cheap souvenir anymore. People just don't do that. They go online, they go on their phones.
Well, I've got a better idea with Visit Scotland, right? As a department, Visit Scotland should be licensing every hotel that there is, every place that is an attraction for people, right? And if they fall short of what they're doing for the customer, then as far as that's concerned, they can lose their license to trade. And I mean, I know a few hotels north of here that should lose their license to trade as hotels. They're absolutely disgusting. And if Visit Scotland did an operation like that, where they actually sent people round like housekeepers to make sure that we're up to the mark, because if we're going to earn money off of tourists coming from abroad, we're going to have to make sure that we actually cater to those tourists properly.
Aye.
I mean, one day I went Fort Augusta, middle of summer, and the place was a tip. There was no beyond from the council, and the bins were stacked up to the point the litter was just blowing across the road and all the rest of it. It was ridiculous. It just was not a good poster for Scotland, and it's one of the most beautiful places in Scotland. Yeah.
As I say, Visit Scotland's argument is that these places are no longer financially viable. They're actually a drain on what they could be doing with the money. It could be going on online campaigns to advertise abroad.
No, but you're talking about the tourist centres, where you pick up a brochure. Oh, here we go. Brochures on kilt making and such, the rest of it. That's fine, but I wouldn't keep a place open for that. Use them as a department to actually make sure that Scotland is doing what it's supposed to be doing in terms of gaining customers.
What you do in the comments here, David, another reason why these places are no used is because Visit Scotland give these leaflets to put into bed and breakfast and hotels, so you can pick them up when you go to them.
Yeah.
You've got to be. I mean, we were out in Musselburgh recently for another charity night, right? And when you go in the door there at the reception at the Premier Inn, there's a wee plastic thing on the wall that's got Visit Scotland on it, and then it's leaflets with all the information for the area.
All it's required. And in actual fact, I think if it was better set up in terms of the IT and making it easier for people to access information online.
Well, that's what they want to concentrate on. They want to concentrate on online campaigns to promote Scotland.
Yeah.
That's what they want to concentrate the money on. So that's what the argument is. All people will be able to access information. I just don't buy that. And if these places aren't financially viable, then if they can't make enough to pay the rent and pay the staff, then you don't keep these things afloat. I think there's only something like 50 or 70 staff. They're talking about trying to redeploy a lot of them.
Yeah.
So if you want to redeploy them, get them leaflets in a van and get them round the bed and breakfasts.
By the way, Stephen Kelly's put up, are you both having Easter Monday off? I think, yes, we will. We might move it to the Tuesday. What do you think, David? Shift it to Tuesday, because Leslie will want to do something on that day, and it's like, she's bigger than me. You know, I don't like getting cuffed behind the ears.
No, listen, you're a Christian. It's a Christian festival. You go ahead and carry on. We can always date on Tuesday. It's just another day to me. I'll be at work.
I'm not strong enough to blooming roll any boulders out the way. Seriously.
I have no intention of rolling fucking boulders anywhere. I'm a truck driver. Right, the next story is a Brexit story, David. And this one made me chuckle. And it also made me think about the political elite here in Scotland.
Yes.
Now,
jobs for the boys.
Jobs for the boys, correct. Now, Chief Executive of Salmon as in the fish, Scotland, ex-Lib Dem MSP for Shetland from 1999 till 2019, will tell the Holyrood Procurements and External Affairs Committee that Brexit has cost the Scottish salmon industry £100 million a year in exports to the EU. Now, the particular person who is the chief executive of Salmon Scotland is Davies Scott, ex-Lib Dem MSP for Shetland.
Thing is, though, what does he do for his money?
I don't know.
For his chairmanship of like, you know, Salmon Scotland, whatever. It's like, you look at it and you think, well, what does he actually do for it?
I don't know. I don't know what his role is at all as a chief executive of Salmon Scotland, because it's an umbrella body or encompassing a lot of individual companies. So, is he there like a tourist information office to promote, or a tourist organisation to promote Scottish salmon, or what? I don't know what he does. What I do know is he'll be appearing in front of this committee as one of the political elite who have moved into the private sector and landed on a top job. And he will be telling us the Brexit red tape has more or less whacked £100 million off the industry here in Scotland. And what he's telling us is the rest of the world isn't taking up the slack like we were told it was going to, because you have to freeze it to export it to the rest of the world.
I just think that's so. Honestly, we told them at the time of Brexit, the Brexit vote, do you honestly think that you're going to be selling? You better hope that Mr. and Mrs. Scotland and Mr. and Mrs. England are going to double or treble or quadruple the amount of fish they buy week on week. When the Waynes go, I don't like fish, Mammy. Right, there you go. That's it.
Unless it's coated in breadcrumbs and tomato sauce.
Yeah, and the people that were buying the fish were the European market. Scottish fish, wallop. There you go. What about the oysters? What about the Lochfine oysters?
Aye.
For Paris, right? The best restaurants in Paris, Lochfine oysters. It was written on the actual. They did Le Lochfine oysters.
Aye, it was on the menu. It was a boast.
But there you go. And we told them at the time, you're not going to be able to make up that shortfall. And he's now saying it now.
Oh, aye.
The cheeky wee blooming brat that he is. Because at the end of the day, he'll have sung the same tune. Oh, we'll get our fishing waters back again. Seriously.
I don't know where it's at. I honestly can't say what today's Davies Scott's stance on Brexit was, but if I remember right, the Lib Dems here in Scotland were against Brexit.
I can well assure you, if he is now chairman of Salmon Scotland, and the majority of his people that are the salmon industry in Scotland were for Brexit, he's for Brexit. Don't worry. He'll go whichever way.
Either, but what I do know is he's going to be telling them Brexit's been a disaster for the salmon industry. Well, so what? The whitefish industry's been saying the same thing. And they're the ones that really thought they were getting their quota back. Yeah. You know? Well, nobody had actually sat down and walked out that none of them actually fished the waters. They sold the bloody quotas to foreign companies.
That's right.
You know? So it's just a laugh. But what we will say about Davies Scott is
anyway, Chuck McGregor. British fish are happy fish.
Oh aye.
The plate. Yeah.
Of course they are. Knew there was no market for them. We get to leave them in the water. No, that's not true. As I say, they were selling their quotas to foreign companies anyway, because the UK population didn't eat that much fish.
Yeah. Now, what was the wee story we were in the other day there about the herring? It was a herring spawning grounds.
Aye.
Visible from space.
Aye, because of green policy, he'd kept the boats out of the spawning grounds. Aye. Now, but yes, there's a good point here and all, and that is that Jim Buchan, convinced the haddock and cod fishermen to vote for Brexit. And look what happened to them. Peter, he'd that big brand new fish market that nothing there to sell anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody can bloody sell it except for the internal market, and as we just pointed out, people don't eat fish that much. Right, let's move on. Time's moving on. Scottish Government to adopt UK-wide legislation on aims curbing smoking and vaping. Now, this gives us a chance to get into something that was said in the comments last time round, and that was there is UK-wide UK law. No, there's no. There's legislation which is enacted across three legal systems across the UK. The legislation is produced in Westminster. Yeah. And if the Scottish or Irish legal systems have to take it up, then it's got to be tweaked and rewritten to fit in with all the other Scots laws. So it's actually interpreted into Scots and Irish law before it's implemented in that area of the UK or in that country of the UK.
But
everything is UK law. But as the title of this segment clearly states, there is legislation which is enacted UK-wide.
Yep.
They're two different things.
Yep.
The idea might come to the Westminster Parliament, they might draft a bill. It's then going to be put into the hands of Scottish legal experts to translate it into Scots law so it fits in with all other Scottish legislation.
Even for example, David, when you talk about the Human Rights Act 2000, right?
Yes.
That was brought into the English law and through Westminster, brought into Scottish. You know what I mean? And don't forget that Holyrood was just set up. Had to be enacted for Holyrood. And I think did Wales not have their own version of the Human Rights Act?
No, it was not devolved to Wales. Northern Ireland had their own version.
Northern Ireland, of course it was. Yeah. So
and what happens is, folks, to let you understand, when they talk about UK law, it does not exist. There is UK-wide legislation, but it's rewritten to fit into each of the three legal systems.
Yeah.
That's it. Anyway, let's get into the meat and bones of what this stuff's about. As we know, October 23rd next year, throwaway vapes will be banned. There'll be a 6% tax put on the liquids that go into the rechargeable vapes. And of course, the age at which you will be able to buy tobacco will go up incrementally year on year.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad idea to have it translated into Scots law and to interpret and to enact it, because we do want to end smoking. We know it's bad for our population. The big problem is we don't really want to lose the tax revenue, or Westminster doesn't really want to lose the tax revenue, so they're going to tax the vaping liquids going forward.
The way I look at it is it's tax on tax on tax on tax on tax on tax. And as my wee mammy used to say, each time there was a budget, she would watch the budget in the telly and she would go, "Same again. The wee Scotsman loses his wee fag and his wee pint at the weekend." Because she was very, very much a feminist. My mother was a feminist. She wasn't a...
But she would also have been of a time, David. Now we are all of the opinion, even as smokers, that we don't want the generations coming through doing it.
Absolutely.
And it's about a transition again. We keep talking about transitions. It's about transition again to a smoking society, to a non-smoking society, and finding out how we're going to plug the gap in the massive amount of tax revenue which is brought in for the sale of tobaccos.
Whoever thought of that idea of making the minimum age step up a year each year, it means then you've got a chunk of the population that doesn't smoke, never has smoked, and that's wonderful.
Yes.
You know,
as I say, but the big thing about it is it will be the tax that's introduced on these vaping liquids.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting because there's a fair few people out there making their own.
Yeah.
You know, they blend up their own vaping liquids. How do you tax them? Well, and of course, David, we know that the vaping devices, the rechargeable vaping devices, which are being favoured, instead of these bloody plastic things with batteries are not lying all over the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, fag ends were unsightly enough, but now there's howlers of these plastic things lying at the roadside.
Well, you know you used to be able to buy the fag, didn't you? It was a fag, and you just screwed on the filter onto it, and the filter was where the juice was, right?
Aye.
I found a way to actually recharge them using a syringe
Right.
in the bottle, you know. So,
well, see, that's how they're going to work these vapes. They're going forward. You get to a shop, you'll buy some vaping liquid because you'll already have bought the apparatus. But the apparatus, in order to smoke, of course, will be subject to VAT. It's a luxury item.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so that's how they're going to make up the tax revenues.
Yeah.
But going forward, of course, that tax revenue will dry up as the incremental rules on smoking, and that's vaping or a tobacco smoking, the age limit at which you can buy it goes up. So it will eventually be faded out.
Huh? Yeah.
And we don't think it's a bad thing. Do you?
Well, you know, I suppose maybe I've added a couple of years onto my life through giving up in 2022. But anyway, I wouldn't have had, if I hadn't smoked, I wouldn't have had to go through this operation that I went through. You know,
right.
That's
one for some reasons get said the independence section of a society up in arms apparently. Whom the Yusuf confirms he will ask Keir Starmer for a Section 30 order when he wins the general election. Is anyone surprised about that?
Well, but the thing is, though, it's like you've got to figure you have to follow. You've got to put a tick in the box, haven't you? Right?
Yes.
So in other words, when you get a situation like that where it becomes a negotiator, whatever, right? You have to ask, the first question is, right, you're going to give us a Section 30 order? No. Right, okay. Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? Right, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to do this, this, and this. And that's it. And that's the way it goes.
It's no, I mean, what I see here is a Stussy out of nothing. He's got to go and ask the question. It's not the question, it's what he does after he's been refused.
That's right.
That's the point.
Nicola Sturgeon was exactly the same. She would go and say, right, can I have a Section 30 order, right? And it's like each time you had a new leader, if you like, you know, Theresa May, right, can we have a Section 30 order? No, now is not the time. Then, Boris Johnson, right, can we have a Section 30? No, now's not the time, right? Yeah. So all those, it means that you're boxing them into a corner and saying to them, look, right, is that your answer? That's your firm answer. Right, fine, okay. And that then tells you the direction you've got to go.
Yes, and that's the point. The point is, he has said there is a plan for afterwards that even the rest of the party agree with, although we don't, because although it is a plan, it's going to be much harder to achieve. Because what the unions will do in a Scottish election will discard the Greens and Alba representatives if they win any positions in that parliament. And if it's not an SNP majority, we'll say no.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger problem than a plebiscite election to Westminster. You know, but it is the...
Yeah, sorry, David. Carry on.
It is the Stussy about him asking like it's being portrayed in the press. That's just another part of the procedure that has to be done. And Stephen, see us time to use the claim of right stuff now. 300-year-old shite or 1,000-year-old shite isn't going to cut it in a modern democracy. End of story. We have got to have a democratic event, and we've got to take the majority of the population with us. So all this crap about ancient laws getting us out of this union.
Well, hang on a second, David. Right? You know, Stephen, do you feel? You can tell us on here. Do you feel that we could honestly get independence just by pushing the claim of right, in the words of it, up against our faces? You think that would happen?
You think they don't already know?
Yeah.
You think they don't already know about the claim of right? We've seen it pass through Westminster on numerous occasions. We've seen it modernised in 1997
We
to the
saw
Labour Party.
we saw King Big Ears having to use a bit of it for get his arse on the throne, but that
Yes.
still doesn't get you independence. What gets you independence is getting the ballot boxes out their cupboards.
And take the majority of the population with you.
That's right.
So all these harebrained ideas that have been out there. And Nathan, you're absolutely right. The UN's law and right to self-determination is being thwarted by another government the same way. And that other government is clearly stating that Israel doesn't have the right to stifle Palestine's right to self-determination, but Westminster's the right to stifle ours. It is rank hypocrisy, but it doesn't change the fact in order to achieve that self-determination, which is our right under the UN law, is we're going to have to vote on it, and we're going to take the majority of the population with us, and it's going to have to be a clear majority.
Now, think of it this way. Scotland goes to the UN. Scotland puts a really, really good case about independence, about the UN, and eventually it gets up to a vote with the Security Council of the UN, and America vetoes Scottish self-determination. What are you going to do then? You know, think about it.
As I say, there's only one way to go about this, David, and I'll debate anybody on it, and I have. And we have. We debated Sarah Sawyers on it, we debated Mark McNaught on it, and when you bile right down here, the ballot box is going to come out the bloody box. Now, it's not about whom's asking the question, it's about the reply.
Yes.
Yeah. And what he does afterwards. And that's the important bit. It really is. Now, also, David, on the same subject, seeing our own self-determination and devolution, of course, is linked here. We see Keir Starmer promising further devolution in areas like transport and economy and things like that to the regions of England. Now, when the Greens here in Scotland asked the question of Starmer and of Scottish Labour, if that same extension of power would come to Scotland, silence was deafening.
It wouldn't. Simply wouldn't. There are a few faces I could point to on the front bench of Labour that really don't like Scotland. They don't like the people of Scotland getting anything like the upper hand. Okay? I'm not going to name and shame at the moment. I'll keep that for future programmes when I think it will be effective. We tell a few stories. But we need independence, guys. And the only way to get it is through the ballot box.
And that means campaigning bloody hard and convincing people.
That's right. I mean, if we could get, not going to happen, but if we could get 57 MPs, SNP MPs, through to sit in the House of Commons at the next general election, you might be looking at Hamza Yusuf having enough confidence to say, right, that's it, we're declaring it, right? See, if you don't do that, forget it.
Well, Hamza's going to be sure that he's got the majority of the population with him.
Yeah.
Right, see, Starmer's offered English regions full fat devolution. When the question was asked to Sarwar by the Scottish Greens, the silence was deafening.
Yeah.
And there's been no reply for Starmer.
Yeah.
None. So, that covers what the story is with Hamza Yusuf and the so-called Stouchy about asking again for a Section 30 order. Needs to be done.
Yeah.
Ticking the box. That would be the 5th or 6th time they've asked for one to prospect to different prime ministers, and the ruling in the Supreme Court is starting to look really rocky on the idea that the will of the Scottish people isn't being oppressed. If you're denying a people's democracy and the people's will, then they're always being oppressed.
Right, that's us. We've covered that, Will. What we'll do is, for the last 10 minutes of the programme...
I've got one very covered, David.
Carry on, David, please, if you want.
We'll get Labour's U-turn on Brexit deal renegotiation as EU tells Starmer it's a review, not a renegotiation. So all of a sudden, Starmer's had to flip again on his pledge to get a better Brexit deal. You're not getting a better Brexit deal. You're getting a review of the deal that's in place. End of bloody story. That's the second time the EU's tell them. The press in this country have been running a false narrative on this. Starmer's been running a false narrative on this. This has been obvious all the way along. If we look at how they were quite willing to tweak the Northern Ireland border arrangements, but they weren't willing to scrap them.
Yeah. I mean, we look at the situation with Barnier versus Frost. All those negotiations that went forward at that time, it was disgusting. It was actually, Barnier would have been up well within his rights to blooming walk across, jump on top of the table and kick the guy's head in, Frost, because of what he was doing, what he was trying to do. And it was just a case of his time wasting. It's pure and simple time wasting. That man gave up part of his life, Barnier, in order to take the shite that was getting thrown at him from across the negotiating table.
They're not going to do it again, David. They'll just know.
Yeah, the EU will just look at it and go, don't be daft.
And this idea that the UK could rock up, even with a majority of people saying, I we want to rejoin, it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen for a reason. Because there's no stability in government in there. The Labour Party might renegotiate, rejoin. The Tory Party get in, the right-wing fascists, and that'll be gone again. But I want to address this one, if you don't mind. And this has to do with Gordon as well, because, as you know, this happened to me. Once the majority position of the Scottish population has been silenced online, we have got a problem. Well, actually, there's ways around it, Chip.
Yeah.
I mean, they were limiting me before they were limiting Gordon Ross.
Yeah.
They claimed I'd infringed copyright on Facebook, and they barred me. And knew I've got to physically make the audio, make each show public. But there is a way you run it. They can't control all the social media platforms, and we do have access to streaming services.
And also,
we use the streaming service right now to stream across 2 platforms. If Dave and I wanted, we could stream across up to, I think, out of the 37 streaming platforms out there, we could probably put an hour programme out in about 20 of them if we were willing to pay for it.
But the most important thing is that we made the decision a long time back to actually use something other than Facebook for these videos. And when we hit upon the situation where we could go Facebook and YouTube, then that made a lot of sense. And it's where we've managed to get a lot of people across from Facebook into YouTube. And the experience for those people, I think, is better because Facebook are doing their best to try and quieten us down, shut us down.
Shut us up.
People that are able to watch, that sort of thing, pretty...
I remember, because at one point I was getting up to 10,000 people tuning into a programme a day, for each programme. So and I was putting them out once a day. Gordon was getting a very similar reach. And to watch that disappear overnight like that because nobody could see what you're putting out.
Yeah.
Initially they dropped me to friends and family. I went from thousands of people to only 400. I went, what the fuck's wrong here? By the time I caught up to what they were doing, I'd lost the audience.
Yeah.
So I can understand where Gordon's coming from, because he's a massive follower of Facebook as well. And people of our generation still predominantly use Facebook for communication.
Yeah. And you have to remember it's Nick from the Lib Dems that is running the UK version of Facebook or whatever they're called this week, right? Do you think he's going to support any people that are pro-independence? No. He called me and my ilk extremists. His words. Yeah, seriously. His words. That's when he was the Deputy Prime Minister. He called people in Scotland, extremists. Well, I tell you what. See, when
Well,
it comes
might well
to,
go. It's just come up with a new definition of extremist. It might well drag us into that category.
yeah, maybe, you never know. There you go.
Well, think about what the wording was, David.
Oh,
The wording
George,
was that
don't worry, son. I know what it's called. It's just I like to make the joke of Facebook or whatever it's fucking called this week. All right.
no, don't have any on issue. But the chat's been quite lively, indeed.
Aye.
You know, and David, just as we fire out the door, I guess we better mention the UN resolution on a ceasefire in Gaza, which is being ignored.
Yeah.
You know, the US did give Israel a minor slap by abstaining this time, and the UK abstaining, letting the resolution pass.
Yeah.
But the US is still funding them. The UK is still funding them and giving them weapons.
That's right.
And they're not stopping.
Yep.
We made it quite clear. We're not stopping till the job's done. And when he talks the job done, he's talking about clearing out Gaza and clearing out the West Bank.
And the UN General Council, the female that's rapporteur for Palestine, has said that it's now recognised in the UN that genocide, the standard for calling it genocide, has been met.
It's also interesting that four big EU states have now recognised Palestine's right to statehood.
Yeah.
You know, that was France, Portugal, Spain, and somewhere else. But
this will go down as the most sickening time for the human race. I don't know of any other situation. The only other one I could point to would be the unnecessary use of nuclear weapons in Japan at the end of the war, at the end of the Second World War, when Japan were trying to sue for peace. They were trying to get in any way they could to sue for peace, and yet the Americans decided they were going to use those nuclear weapons anyway. Now, if you look at any history programs on this subject, you can see why they used the nuclear weapons at the time. It wasn't to blooming scare the Japs. It was to scare the Russians. No, it's to scare the Russians. To tell the Russians, look, there's the power we've got. Don't stand up against us. That was it.
To scare the rest of the world. And we know what happened then. The arms race started.
Yeah.
The Cold War started.
So the Americans, through and through and through, I am now pointing to them as being a terrorist state. They are a terrorist state because of the amount of wars that they have started, got involved with, whatever, over the past 15, 20 years. You look at them, you go, no, that's not right. And the idea to take out Iraq based upon the Twin Towers coming down, how the hell do you make that connection? You don't.
The intelligence services, David, but hey, what I will say is, you're absolutely right about what's happening in Gaza. And the fact that the Israel, which is now a terrorist state, as well as those who are complicit in what they're doing, is ignoring the UN resolution and the order of international law, puts us in a really, really precarious situation. And we're about to see the breakdown of international law.
And Rishi Sunak,
worrying.
Not in my name. Not in my name. You know, he has pushed the thing where he's bolted the Royal Navy on as the wee boy trailing behind the big Americans on the Red Sea, hitting Yemen for all they're worth. And the Houthis are going, blooming get it up, yous. And they're firing blooming weapons into the Red Sea. And they boats are going up there, and the reason they boats are going up there is because the insurance companies that insure those big boats are going, if you go up there, you're not insured anymore. You know? And you also think of the men that are on those boats. Their own their own life insurance to keep their families if they get killed. They'll be blooming. They'll be nulling.
I have been unemployed as well. Aye.
Yeah.
But you see, I think we can now say with hands on heart that Israel is now a terrorist state. It is ignoring the international order. It's ignoring international law. It's continuing with its genocide, even though a motion has been passed in the Security Council for a ceasefire.
Yeah.
See, but America and Israel will kiss and make up.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. But right now, Israel's had a rebuke from America. But that's not enough. America could bring it to a stop by just saying, you know what, name our weapons, name our money.
I can't understand the people of America allowing this situation to continue. Are you blind? Are you blind? And you've got two fools, you've got two cheeks of the same arse, Biden and fucking Trump. Bloody hell.
Yeah, you know, it's not any different for doing that road, David. But we do need to wind this up, because I start work shortly.
Okay.
I'm only one cup of coffee away from being at work.
Oh, we're just getting started.
Right, folks, we're sorry Gordon didn't make it on the day. We will sort something out with Gordon.
Yeah.
And we will get him on for a chat. Obviously his phone didn't support the streaming service.
And we'll let you know if we're running Monday, because it is Easter Monday. A lot of people go out to the pub and all the rest of it, right? So
right, well, we wait Tuesday, David. Okay, decision made, but we wait Tuesday. Tuesday, 2 p.m, folks.
That's the way.
All right, and I'll schedule the programme so you'll get notification that it'll be Tuesday at 2 p.m. I might drop on and do a wee short on the Scottish Economic Festival, which just finished. I might do a wee short on that tomorrow. But might, it's only a might. We'll see how I feel in the morning. Because, as you know, guys, I've got a great interest in these things. Now, we hope you find today's show interesting. We hope you found it informative. Eyes on the prize. It's an election year. Time to wear off and wear down your shoe leather. And that's just about leaves us what? Oh, like, subscribe, and share. I keep forgetting that, but David.
The subscriptions are hugely important as we run into a campaign year. We need those subscriptions because it makes a massive difference when it comes to actually financing getting money out to the food banks.
And the other thing is, if you were part of Gordon's audience and you find yourself with nowhere to go, come and join us.
Yeah.
And hopefully Gordon will find a way to continue, but we'll find out when we speak to him, okay?
Yeah.
Right, I will always one thing left today, David.
Yeah, if Gordon just needs a wee break, then fine. We can keep things going for him. All right. So anyway, David, just as you were going to say, bye, Davey.
Bye,
guys.
Bye, folks. Tune in Tuesday.